Yesterday, my 82-year-old mother called someone for help and they replied with just one sentence, "I'm busy." This morning, that same person kept calling me, and this time there was panic in their voice. And for the first time, the decision to help or not was mine. My mother is not the kind of person who asks for help easily. Even at 82, she values her independence more than anything. She cooks for herself, manages her routine, and handles her day without relying on anyone. So when she actually picked up the phone to call someone, it wasn't something small. Later, she told me what happened. She had a slight slip in the kitchen. She didn't fall completely, and she wasn't injured, but it shook her. Not physically, mentally, because in that moment she realized something she didn't want to admit. Her balance wasn't what it used to be. And sometimes it's not the injury that scares you, it's the realization that you're not as steady as you once were, that even a simple moment can turn into something serious, and for someone like her, that thought alone was enough to make her reach out. But she didn't call me first. She didn't want to disturb me. She knows I work, I stay busy, and she's always been the kind of mother who avoids being a burden. So instead, she called the person who lived closest to her. It was a simple request. "Hey, if you're free, could you come by for a bit?" No urgency in her tone. No pressure. Just a quiet ask. The response she got? "I'm busy. That's it. Nothing more." "No, are you okay?" "No, I'll come later." Not even a follow-up message. Just a flat answer that made one thing very clear. She wasn't a priority. When my mother told me, she didn't complain. It didn't sound upset. She just said one sentence. She was busy. And when someone says it that calmly, you know they felt it. I went to check on her immediately. Physically, she was fine. She smiled, acted normal, even tried to brush it off like it didn't matter. But I noticed something small, something subtle. She didn't try calling anyone again, and that's the part people don't understand. When someone stops asking for help, it's not because they don't need it anymore. It's because they don't expect anyone to come. I stayed with her for a while, talked about random things, made sure she was okay, but in my head one thought kept repeating, this wasn't about being busy, this was about choice, because being busy isn't the problem, everyone is busy. The real question is, what do you choose to stop being busy for? And life has a way of answering that question in ways you don't expect. The next morning I was starting my day when my phone began to vibrate. I glanced at the screen and saw the name, the same person. Normally I would have picked up instantly, but this time I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then a message came through, "Please call me. Urgent." Yesterday she was too busy to show up. Today she was waiting for someone else to. I called her back. She answered immediately, like she'd been holding the phone, staring at the screen, waiting for it to light up. "Are you available?" she asked. But this time her voice didn't have the same tone. No confidence, no distance, just urgency. I didn't answer right away. I just said one thing, "I'll see." And in that moment, everything had shifted. The situation, the roles, the control. Yesterday she said she was busy. Today she needed help. Funny how fast things change when you're the one on the other side. There was a pause on the line after I said, "I'll see." Not a long one, but long enough for her to realize something had shifted. Yesterday she had the control. Today she didn't. "What do you mean you'll see?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. But there was a slight crack in it. The kind people don't notice unless they're listening closely. And I was listening. I didn't rush to explain. I didn't fill the silence. Because sometimes silence makes people hear themselves clearer than words ever could. "I just need a small favor," she added quickly. "It won't take long." That part almost made me pause, because that's exactly how my mother had asked. Same tone, same simplicity, same assumption that the other person would show up. The only difference was, now she understood what it felt like to ask. "What happened?" I asked calmly. Not out of urgency, not out of concern, just neutral. "My car won't start," she said. "I have somewhere important to be, and I don't know what to do." There it was, the situation. A small problem, not life-threatening, not an emergency, just inconvenient enough to need help. Exactly like yesterday. "I'm kind of busy right now," I said. I didn't raise my voice, didn't add attitude, just repeated the same energy, word for word. There was complete silence on the other end. Not confusion, not anger, just realization. Because now it wasn't just a sentence anymore. It had weight, it had context, it had memory. I understand, she replied quietly, but the way she said it made it clear she didn't like understanding it, and that's the thing about situations like this. You don't really understand them until you're standing in them. I could have ended the call right there, left it exactly as it was. Same action, same outcome, same lesson, but this wasn't about revenge. If it was, I would have just hung up. This was about something else. Something most people don't think about until it's too late. "Where are you?" I asked after a moment. She told me, still unsure what I was going to do. "I'll come," I said. And the relief in her voice was instant, like tension snapping all at once. "Thank you," she said quickly. "I really appreciate it." And that word, appreciate, felt very different today. I got in my car and started driving, not in a rush, not slowly either, just steady. The whole way there I kept thinking about something simple, how easy it is to say no when the situation isn't yours. And how different it feels when suddenly it is. When I arrived, she was already outside, phone in hand, looking down the street every few seconds, the same way my mother had waited yesterday, not saying it out loud, but hoping someone would show up. I stepped out of the car. She walked toward me immediately. "Thank you for coming," she said again. I nodded, didn't say much, because sometimes people need to sit in the moment a little longer. She started explaining the situation again, but I was already looking at her differently, not with anger, not with frustration, just clarity. And as I stood there listening, I realized something important. Helping her today wasn't the lesson. What came next was, helping her wasn't the lesson. The lesson was making sure she never forgot how that moment felt. She kept talking, explaining what happened, why she was in a rush, how important her plans were, but I wasn't really focused on the details, because the situation didn't matter anymore. The pattern did. I walked over to her car and took a quick look. It didn't take long to figure out the issue. Simple fix. Something that could be handled in minutes. "Can it be fixed?" she asked quickly. There was urgency in her voice again. "That same urgency my mother didn't get the day before." "Yeah," I said calmly. "It's not a big problem." And I could see it, that small wave of relief hitting her again. But this time I didn't move immediately. I didn't start fixing it right away. I just stood there for a second, thinking. She noticed. "Is something wrong?" she asked. A little confused now, a little uneasy. I looked at her and said, "No, just making sure I'm not too busy." That line hit differently this time, not sharp, not aggressive, just placed exactly where it needed to be. She didn't respond right away, because now it wasn't just a memory anymore. It was happening again in real time. "I didn't mean it like that yesterday," she said quietly, and there it was. The explanation. Not an apology, not yet, just an attempt to soften what had already happened. "I know," I replied, and I meant it, because most people don't mean it. They just don't think about it. That's the problem. Not intention, not even attitude, just lack of awareness. I finally started fixing the car, slowly, not dragging it out, but not rushing either. Every second stretched just enough for her to stay in that uncomfortable space, the one where you realize you could have done better. She stood there quietly, no phone scrolling, no distractions, just watching and thinking. "I should have come yesterday," she said after a while. This time there was no defense in her voice, no explanation, just truth. I didn't look up immediately, because that moment, that exact realization, was the entire point. "You should have," I said, not harsh, not emotional, just honest. Silence again. But this time it wasn't uncomfortable, it was necessary. "I didn't think it was serious," she added. And that sentence, that exact sentence, is where most people go wrong, because seriousness isn't always about the situation. Sometimes it's about the person asking. I tightened the last connection under the hood and closed it gently. "All done," I said. She exhaled, almost like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. "Thank you," she said again, but this time it sounded heavier. Not just gratitude, understanding. And understanding changes things, not instantly, not perfectly, but it plants something. I looked at her for a moment and realized something important. She understood the moment, but she still hadn't fully understood the impact, and that's when I decided this conversation wasn't over yet, and she was about to realize that. She thanked me again and reached for her car door like everything was resolved now, like this was just a small inconvenience that had been handled. Problem came. Problem fixed. Move on. Wait, I said, not loudly, not aggressively, but enough to stop her. She turned back, a little confused. Here? Still expecting something simple, something normal. Do you know why I came? I asked. It wasn't a complicated question, but it wasn't a casual one either. She hesitated. Because I needed help. It sounded more like a guess than an answer. I shook my head slightly. No. And that one word changed the entire tone. I came because I wanted you to feel something, I said. Now she was listening differently, fully present, no distractions left. The waiting, the uncertainty, the moment where you don't know if someone will show up. I didn't rush my words. I let each part land. Her expression shifted slowly, not defensive, not dismissive, just processing. That's what my mother felt yesterday, I continued. And she didn't even say it out loud. I could see it hit her, not instantly, but deeply. She didn't call again after you said you were busy, I added. And do you know why? She didn't answer this time, because now she already knew. Because she felt like she shouldn't, I said, like maybe she was asking for too much. That part changed everything, because now it wasn't about inconvenience anymore. It was about how someone felt afterward. I didn't think it would affect her like that, she said quietly. And this time there was no defense left at all. I know, I replied. That's the problem. People don't ignore others on purpose most of the time. They don't sit there thinking, I'm going to hurt this person. They just don't think. About timing, about impact, about what that one moment might mean to someone else. And when it's someone older, I continued, someone who already hesitates to ask for help, that moment matters even more. She looked down for a second, not out of guilt alone, but realization. Realization that something small wasn't actually small at all. I should call her, she said suddenly, almost like she needed to fix it immediately. I nodded. You should. But I didn't say anything else, because this part was hers to handle. She stepped aside and pulled out her phone. I didn't listen to the conversation, didn't need to, because the important part was that she was making that call at all. After a minute, she came back, her voice softer, her expression different. She said it's okay, she told me, and of course she did. That's who my mother is. But okay doesn't always mean nothing happened. Sometimes it just means they've accepted it. She shouldn't have had to feel that way, I said. Not as an accusation, just as truth. I know, she replied, and this time I believed her, because now it wasn't just words anymore. It was understanding built from experience. And that kind of understanding sticks. She got into her car slowly this time, not rushed, not distracted, just thoughtful. As she started the engine, she looked at me one last time. Thank you for coming, she said again. But now, it meant more than just today. I nodded and stepped back, because the situation was over, but the lesson, that was just beginning. The situation ended that day, but the effect of it, that stayed, because some lessons don't fade, they settle. I drove back to my mother's house right after. Not because I had to, but because now I wanted to see something for myself. When I walked in, she was sitting exactly where I left her the day before, calm, composed, like nothing had ever been wrong. That's the thing about people like her, they don't show what they feel easily. Not because they don't feel it, but because they've learned not to expect much. How are you feeling? I asked. Same question as yesterday. But today it meant more. I'm fine, she said with a small smile, and just like before, she meant it in her own way. I sat down next to her, and for a moment we didn't talk about anything serious, just normal things, simple things, because sometimes presence alone is more powerful than words. After a while she said, she called me. I looked at her. Yeah? She apologized. She added, no emotion in her tone, no judgment either. Just information. And? I asked. Not because I didn't know, but because I wanted to hear her perspective. I told her it's okay, she said again. Same words, same calm delivery. But this time I understood something deeper. For her, forgiveness isn't a reaction, it's a habit. And while that's a beautiful thing, it also means people don't always realize when they've crossed a line. That was kind of you, I said. She shrugged slightly. She didn't know. Exactly. That one sentence summed up everything. She didn't know. And most people don't. Not when they're busy, not when they're distracted, not when the moment feels small. They don't realize that sometimes a simple, I'm busy, can feel like, I'm not coming. Or worse, you don't matter right now. I stayed there a little longer. made sure everything was okay, helped her with a few small things around the house, not because she asked, but because now I understood something clearly. Help shouldn't always wait to be requested, especially from someone who struggles to ask for it. Before I left, she said something that stuck with me. "You came quickly," she said. I paused. "Of course I did." She smiled slightly and replied, "I knew you would." And that was the difference. Not availability, not convenience, expectation. She didn't call me first yesterday because she didn't want to bother me, but she also knew if she did, I would have come. And that kind of certainty is something you build over time, or break in a single moment. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again, a message this time. "I've been thinking about what you said," she wrote. "I didn't realize how much that moment could affect someone." Then another message followed. "I won't ignore something like that again. No excuses, no explanations, just acknowledgement." And that's when I knew the lesson had landed. Not because she was told, not because she was corrected, but because she experienced it. That's the only way some lessons work. You don't hear them, you don't read them, you feel them, and once you feel it, you don't forget it. Because next time someone calls you, especially someone who doesn't call often, you won't just hear their words, you'll hear everything behind them, the hesitation, the need, the quiet hope that you'll say yes. And in that moment, you'll have a choice, to stay busy or to show up. Because sometimes showing up doesn't just solve the problem. It reminds someone they're not alone.